Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we'll continue our series, which we started last week, Elevate. And today is session number 2. The topic is Conscious Living, Ethics and Virtue in Daily Life. With our speaker today, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We are on 11 members on Zoom. Welcome back, Vaish. I'm glad to have you on another episode of Success Sadhana.
Thank you so much, JM. I'm really glad to be back and good to see everybody here on a Friday afternoon, if that's what it is for you where you are. And this afternoon, now it's high noon, let's take a minute to introspect. So if you will, try sitting up a little straighter than you were a second ago. And I'm going to give a little background music. And try closing your eyes and relax. And bring your awareness to your breath and just breathe naturally, but be aware of your breath. And relax, but keep an alert mind. And let go of any thoughts that you brought with you. Start over, fresh slate. You can reinvent yourself at any time. Your consciousness, you are consciousness, and you're always there in the present, ready to be creative, ready to rise to new levels of accomplishment, ready to learn. And now try the ultimate of all human experiments that barely anybody does because we're all so busy, and that is be aware that you exist. Don't worry about any thoughts of to do this or not do that. Just be aware that you exist. You don't have to do anything to exist. You already do. And notice that your consciousness is luminous, that you're aware. You can be aware that you're aware. You can be aware that you're an individual. You know that you're alive because that's the power of your consciousness, to be aware that you live. And notice that you're in a physical body, but your hands, your feet, your nose, your ears, your belly, it's all going on the way the rest of the world's going on. Planets are being held in their orbit. The various functions of the material nature around us are working in synchronicity, and our body's part of that. Just as we observe any physical phenomena, we can also observe our bodies and our minds and notice that we are separate from them. And then notice that we are the receivers of many facilities like intelligence. Intelligence comes to us from super spirit, super consciousness. We may be helplessly trying to make a choice, figures out a formula, and then the intelligence comes to us. Or not. Either way, it's being provided or restricted, and we're the receivers. And if you can come into a sense of gratitude for your life, that you exist, that you're given all facility with this human body by which you can examine your own consciousness and not be fearful for survival. And just breathe and relax, but be aware. And now for spiritual strength, in your mind, we'll do a mantra. I'll say it out loud, and you can see the syllables in your mind's eye. R-A-M-A, Rama, means spiritual strength. Say it a few times mentally. Take one last breath and bring your awareness back into your surroundings and then into the Zoom. And welcome back. Thanks for taking a little respite. So today I'll give some of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. We'll start with your spiritual 401k. Of course, now there are questions about whether the 401k was a great idea. Whatever it was, that's what we have these days. And the point of the title, your spiritual 401k, is that your heart, says the Bhagavad Gita, is your bank. That's where we keep our real wealth. The state of our heart will determine the state of our experience in life. The word perceive means what we pick up from the world. And what we pick up is based on the state of our heart. The heart, according to Bhagavad Gita, is the seat of our consciousness. And the aggregate of the mind, the intelligence, and the ego is what creates a lens through which we see the world. We can invest in ourselves by putting this spiritual wealth into our hearts, which brings us to the next principle, which is the law of accumulation. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about how whatever you accumulate spiritually counts. It goes in permanently. That's kind of a little different than a regular 401k, which fluctuates. And when you take it out, it's gone. But with spiritual progress, with spiritual accumulation, there's no loss. Once you have it, it's permanent. It stays there. What do I mean by that? The Bhagavad Gita explains how we're on a continuum. We're moving from one situation to another, that is, one body to the next, but we bring our assets with us. We also carry with us any of the impressions we've had from previous lives. So when we're able to invest in ourselves, our spiritual advancement, develop spiritually, then we carry that with us also. It's permanent. So as the next slide will show, the Bhagavad Gita gives a specific phrase, Daivi Sampat. This means, Daivi indicates something virtuous. Daivi Sampat means that human life is especially meant for accumulating virtuous qualities. And in the next slide, let me just say a little bit about virtuous qualities. I mean, these slides are kind of beautiful, so I hate to move so quickly. Can always go back to them. Virtue, ethics, and morality. Virtue means behavior showing high moral standards. Ethics means rational justification of our moral judgments. And morality means the judgment of what is right and what is wrong. And we have this quote that comes from Aristotle. And he says, humans are responsible for their actions that they freely choose to do. That is, for their voluntary actions. I'll read it again. Humans are responsible for the actions they freely choose to do. That is, for their voluntary actions. So let's come back into the Zoom room for a second. Although the picture's so nice, we could just stay there and look at it. Do you ever feel any pressure when you hear that you're responsible for whatever you freely choose to do? Or does it make you feel excited that you can choose to do the right thing? Or are there any delimiting factors when it comes to that?
Excited.
Marila, you want to explain why you feel excited about it?
Sure. Thank you. I actually I pride myself on every morning that I wake up. It's very important to me personally to be the kindest that I could possibly be, the most helpful to everyone and anyone, not just people I know or family. It's important to me to be the best human that I could possibly be. And so I just had a situation beginning of this week that occurred. Um, and it was saddening to me because I was both verbally, emotionally, and physically abused because that person was angry with me for being kind while they were being gruff. And so my only thought in my mind is that they must have created a comparison in their mind of feeling bad about themselves and the way they were choosing to behave. And so lashed out at me for being kind. And so I'm having trouble processing this because I thought we were supposed to be kind.
Mm. Just looking up a quote about that. Something, ignorance is detestable state of mind. Let's see. Where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. That's what it reminds me of when I said that. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing that
Absolutely.
situation. It sounds like something that we can probably all relate to. The ways
Yeah,
of exhibiting virtuous qualities sometimes are not appreciated. In fact, we can look back in history. Sometimes people who are virtuous are persecuted for that.
I've heard that. And so, but that will absolutely not stop me from being the person that I am. I will continue being the person that I am. And that person that did that this week is the only person in my life that feels that way about me.
Mm,
So all we do is we just focus on the people that do appreciate us
hmm
and are kind to us and
hmm
put our focus there and just continue being the person that we are, I think.
How nice. Thank you very,
Thank
very much. Okay, Yan Yan.
Well, that's very kind of Marilia to be the constant kind to everyone. And I do have a question about that. Is, in such a situation, the way that I read is you treat people the way that you want to be treated. So if there is the abuse, my interpretation is I do not want to pay back the abuse because that's not me. However, I do not believe that they deserve the kindness that I have. So for me, it's like, okay, you don't want my kindness, then I would distance myself from you until you learn to appreciate me. Otherwise, you're not in my world. I, I have limited resources. I have limited energy. I'd rather, like Marilia said, focus on the people who appreciate me. Sometimes I feel like people abuse people because they thought that we have no fight back and we can just keep taking and taking. And I don't believe that I have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is that element in the world that people look to take advantage. Some people do. And in the definitions of humility in the Bhagavad Gita, there's no sense that one should become a doormat or tolerate other people's misunderstanding. And humility doesn't mean that we also submit ourselves to, or subject ourselves rather, to those who are abusive. It's a well-reasoned process, spiritual life. And one, according to the ancient wisdom literature, should choose one's association appropriately, because whomever we associate with, we will develop the qualities of. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So Bhagavad Gita talks about virtuous assets and then gives a list of them. I've always found hearing this list is edifying. Just by hearing it, there's a kind of stimulation of mind and heart where I think, oh, these are nice. I wish I had one of them. And it's an inspiration to develop them. And here's the list. The list starts with fearlessness. I'll just read the list. These are all translations from the Sanskrit, a long list of what are called the virtuous qualities. Fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, that means the wisdom literatures, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, that's Arjuna, who's the student, Krishna speaking to, belong to spiritually advanced people. Now, by contrast, in the next slide, we find a shorter list. These, by the way, if we talk about the high-minded qualities, the statement that Krishna makes is that the virtuous qualities lead to liberation, whereas low-minded qualities lead to bondage. And here they are: pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. Did any of the qualities from the high-minded qualities resonate with any of you? Any of them that you heard that you admire? You can see JM's leaving the list up so you can examine it again. You want me to read it again? Let's see, I'm checking for emojis. Manu
There's
gave
a few
a
on
little
there that I
emoji.
resonate with.
Okay, let's hear.
Can we pull that list up real quick and I'll just
In the
sound them
chat
out?
box.
Oh, okay.
JM found a workaround. High-minded qualities for 500.
Aditi says simplicity.
Simplicity. What do you like about simplicity?
Well, I've been in tech for about 20 years now, and I feel that we continue to complicate our lives with technology over and over again, developing things that we don't really need, trying to speed up, I don't know what in life. Everybody seems to be in rush. So now I really yearn, after 20 years of working in tech, for some simple life like flowers and bees and honey, blue skies, less of screens. So that's what really drawn to
What a
us.
nice point. Very nice point. Simplicity. And we can see the contrast. And it's almost like we never actually get there by all our machinations and ways in which we try to fix things and make them better. And it's like, hey, it was okay in the first place. Nice. What JM, who was trying to make a point also?
Shankari.
Oh, Shankari Kaur. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was
Which one do you like?
compassion for every living entity.
Mhm.
And just last week I called up my cousin brother and wished him birthday. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm getting old and all that stuff." And we got into little conversation on Bhagavad Gita. And then he told me that, okay, tell me, how do you think that people who study wisdom literature, their life is more enriched than people who do not? And I said that it definitely does. There's no two ways about it. And then his question just did not leave me. I was thinking about it over and over again. And I was thinking that, yes, enrichment comes because people who take in a Vedic wisdom, they start living for others. They don't live for themselves. And that's the quality of having compassion for others. Living for myself, anybody can do that. And everybody does that. But there are really handful of people who really do not think about what kind of predicaments they go through, but they really live for themselves. And I thought that that's really the explanation of enrichment. So yeah, that point really stands out.
Yeah, it's almost counterintuitive when you live in service that you feel better about yourself, and also you end up being more, not that it's the goal of doing that at all, but in history, those who have the intention of service and they enact it in the world tend to be more appreciated than others in the long term. These qualities shine forth. In other words, there is a sense, although it may be tacit in some ways, we do appreciate these. That's kind of what we're going through now. We feel like at least I do, a kid in a candy shop looking at all these qualities. Every one of them is worth discussion and interesting to think about and how I might apply it and so forth. Okay, who is next, JM? We got a lot of qualities flying through across the screen here.
Yeah, there are quite a few rolling in the chat box. One is SG, and he says tranquility, calming self to be calm and peaceful from the whirlwind of thoughts.
Let me look up tranquility. Hold on. Tranquil. Tranquil, free from disturbance, calm. Comes from late Middle English, from French, tranquille, or Latin, tranquillus. Free from disturbance, calm. Yeah, nice. Okay. Jam?
We have Anapani who says freedom from covetousness.
Do you want to give a commentary on that, Anapayani?
Sure. I liked that phrase specifically because it implied a lot of satisfaction with one's self and life situation. Covetousness. I saw in the chat someone, McCarvin, that gave a definition of covetousness, which is having a strong desire for something, either for like your for your own life or if maybe something else has. So being free from that implies a lot of satisfaction, and that's something.
Oh, yeah, it does have that edge to it, right? Because it says, at least the definition I'm looking at, having or showing a great desire to possess something belonging to someone else. Yeah, that's very interesting as a spiritual quality. If we realize that everyone's getting what they deserve according to their quota, and for those who are self-satisfied, which is an indication, one of the qualities here, it also one doesn't want to encroach on what others have. And it reminds me of a verse from the ancient book called the Sri Ishopanishad that says, Tena Tyaktena Bunjita, be non-covetous. Just take what comes as your quota. Doesn't mean don't work or just don't sit there on the curb, but do work dutifully, but accept what comes naturally as your quota. Thank you very much. That was a good one. Boy, I love these qualities. We could sit here all day talking about this. Okay, who else do we have there, JM?
So Sheila, she has a question. Vaish, have you ever had to regain balance of living in service versus taking care of yourself?
Yeah, constantly. Like balance. I've been practicing balance a lot lately because as you get older, it's one of the things you can lose. So I try to balance everywhere I can. I walk every day and I walk through the park, and there's a 2x4 that defines the bocce ball courts in Washington Park near where I live. And I try to walk the whole length of it and not fall off. Every once in a while, I make it all the way to the end. And I notice that balance is a series of adjustments. It's not that you just are perfectly still, and nor do I ever just walk straight across that beam, but I'm constantly pulling to the left, to the right, and back. And because we have various forces working here in the material world, and we ourselves are trying to exist here spiritually, but we also have to take care of our duties to our body, to the world, and so forth. It's a series of constant adjustments. Yes, so I have had to regain a balance of living in service versus taking care of myself. The other way to I've understood it is just as far as relationships goes. I heard this statement years ago, and I always appreciated that. I'll take care of myself for you, and you take care of yourself for me. And there's a way in which, when you do live a life of service, something I aspire to, then taking care of myself is a kind of service, because as my friend Matthew told me, he worked for the San Francisco Fire Department for 20 years as paramedic. And he said the first thing they taught him in paramedic school is a dead paramedic can't save anybody. So your first duty is to make sure you don't get harmed, injured, or killed when you get to the scene. And in a similar way, we also have to attend to our so-called material duties to stay whole, mind, body, spirit. Altogether, it's a balance. Nice. Thanks, JM, for pointing me to that question. What a great question that was. Who else do we have?
We have Yan Yan, whose hand is up, and she
Oh,
also
good. Yan Yan, please go ahead. Which virtue do you like?
So I do want you to elaborate and kind of enlighten us on the one that says freedom from envy. That's easy, right? Everybody knows. But and from something about honor. That part confused.
from the passion for
From the
honor.
passion for honor. And also in the low energy or the binding energy, the first thing came out was a pride. So most of us think of a pride as a positive and honor as a positive. So can you please?
Yes. Well, the way the Bhagavad Gita presents these ideas is that when we are aware that we are doing things not by our own power, but that we are parts of the whole. And as parts of the whole, we're receiving the power to do things. If one thinks like this, instead of thinking, I'm doing it, is one of the main statements of the Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna says that if you think you're the ultimate doer, of course, we have to desire, and we do have some independent desire to do the right thing. But whatever we're doing is being assisted. We're receiving the energy, the power. So for instance, if you do something like maybe you paint a picture and everyone says, well, that's really beautiful. And then you think, well, I'm so great. And I'm proud of how great I am. A person who would receive that in a spiritual way would think, well, I'm amazed that I was empowered to do something like that because it wasn't me. In fact, I know lots of artists who, for instance, writers, they say, I didn't really write this book. I sat down and the ideas came to me and they flowed through. I'm just an instrument. And so that's the difference. And therefore, pridefulness, if we have pride, there is such a thing as spiritual pride, that you're aware of the fact that you're able to, for instance, control your senses, and you feel proud of yourself that I was able to do that properly, that I was able to, for instance, control myself when I was in a situation where I was provoked. You may feel a little sense of, okay, I did the right thing. I feel proud of myself. So it's not that we erase all emotions, but we transfer them to and give the credit where credit is due. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much. So basically,
Great question, Yan Yan. Thank you so much.
yeah, I take it that we don't do things to seek the honor, because what happens if you did and you never got any recognition? You'll be bitter.
That's true. And as far as writing goes, my spiritual teacher, whom I met in 1973, and I knew for 4 years, used to encourage his students to write. And he would say, don't write for honor, don't write for fame, write for your own purification. And that goes for almost anything, that do it so you get purified and don't expect anything in return. Yes. So well restated, Yan Yan. Thank you. Okay, Jam, what should I do next? There's a few more, right?
Yeah, there are a few more on the chat box. Marilia says, performance of sacrifice, non-violence, truthfulness, gentleness, compassion, forgiveness, cleanliness, free from envy.
I like that. Collect them, trade them with your friends. You can take a bushel basket home, really. Okay. And Tejas.
Tejas says, I heard a saying, forget them who you cannot forgive them whom you cannot forget. My dad always preaches me, forgive and forget. I'm trying to develop forgiveness as much as I can. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard something in a similar vein is, forget what you've done for others and remember everything they've done for you. Okay, what else?
We have Raj, who says, forgiveness helps you escape from the bad habits of drinking poison and hoping the other person would die.
That's right. That's such an adept and apt saying, isn't it? Okay.
And then Pratipha, did you come online to say something?
No.
Oh, maybe it was an accident. Okay. Nirali says, truthfulness, forgiveness, charity, purification of one's existence, simplicity, be desireless, covetousness, vigor, free from fault finding, work in progress.
Which one was that?
From Nirali, she listed a long list of
Oh,
inspirations.
Nirali. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, they're so good. You don't want to just say one, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Shankari Kaur says, it may appear to be a long list of virtuous qualities. However, they are all interlinked. Cultivation of a few qualities will lead to the development of others.
And she also mentioned study of Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas.
Yeah.
That's why we're depending on guidance for our intelligence from a source of knowledge and perception that's beyond ours. It's a virtuous quality.
And then Deepak says, I experienced that following aversion to fault finding keeps you distant mentally from those people, and their actions don't bother you as well as see good in them.
I love this one. I really like this. He said, I experienced not doing that also and its impact. I love this because it's we have a choice. If we enter into the maelstrom of criticism, we find people that we think have some fault. And as soon as we start bringing them out, then we get connected to all that. Of course, unless it's constructive criticism that you've been asked for, it's your duty to bring it out. Again, there's also exceptions to these which can be properly applied, just as in ethics, telling the truth. In any ethics class, they'll say, okay, telling truth is ethical, moral, but then you're taking care of somebody who's being pursued by abusers, and then they say, is he here or is she here? And you say, yes, then the person gets hurt because of you, then that's not an ethical way of telling the truth. There's ways of telling the truth that other people may be harmed unnecessarily. Okay. Jay said, virtuous are those who can forgive without constraint. Blessed are those who can live without needing forgiveness. Wow. You guys are putting so much good stuff out here today. I can barely take it.
And Zila also looks like she walks on the curbs in my neighborhood to improve my balance too.
Ha ha ha, great. That's nice. Okay, we should have a balance club or something. All right, so Jam, let's look at a couple more slides. So we have bhakti yoga because how does one develop good qualities? Actually, the version of the Bhagavad Gita is that consciousness is originally pure, but it gets covered with layers, just like if you have a crystal and it's clear and beautiful, but then it gets covered by layers of dust or even mud. And then it loses its original quality of being clear, luminous, beautiful. And so there's a process through which one can adjust one's life. There are a few things. One is called karma yoga. Karma means to work, to do activity. So I've summarized it in the first bullet point. Use all things in service. We have things. There's no question about it. And when we think of things as ours, they become burdensome. And for instance, we may get some things and then we'll think of coveting other people's things because things are not enough when we try to possess them. When we try to use them in service, then of course they're not enough also because we want to do more service, but there is a difference in quality of the way we interact with the world. It's called enlightened engagement when we use everything in service and we don't try to covet it ourselves. We also don't have that sense of anger because we know we don't possess anything. Okay, next is to treat all living beings with respect. How do you do that? Well, seeing beyond just the superficial body. Superficial in the real sense of the term, it's not the essence of who we are. We're actually the consciousness, which is like think of a priceless diamond that's within, a diamond that's so priceless that it lasts forever. The self or the consciousness has that luminous diamond-like quality. It's the most valuable thing we have is ourselves. And every living being, despite whatever body they have, is ultimately the conscious soul within, the Atma. So when we see beyond just the superficiality of the world, we can have respect for all living beings, not artificially. Artificial means I respect my family, but everybody else on the block can, I'm not so concerned about. And then when we grow a little bit more, we think, well, I respect everybody in my town, or I respect everybody in my country, but not other people in other countries. Or I respect all humans on the planet, but not other living beings. So it continues to expand, and the ultimate practice of this type of respect is to have respect for all living beings based on something that's tangible, which is that we're not our bodies, we're actually the spiritual soul within. And here's another one: make it your quote unquote religion to spot your own faults and correct them. This is one of the ways that one can stay in balance with the practice, the spiritual practice, is be aware of your own faults. There's enough to do there. Now, I want to see if you're ready for a quiz. Are you ready for a quiz? Have a little courage, everybody. Raise your hand and say, yes, I'll take the quiz. Yay. All right. I know this is a pop quiz. Don't become anxious. It's going to be fun and easy, but it is a quiz. I'll read through the quiz. You
Yeah,
can download it for yourself at home from the text box, and we'll go through them one at a time. What do you think?
Great idea.
Okay, thank you. The quiz is, are you spiritual? The chart below will help you estimate your level of spirituality. So these questions are based on the character of a spiritually realized person as described in sacred texts. On a scale of 1 to 10, note the degree to which you imbibe the following behaviors or qualities. 1 means you never demonstrate these behaviors, and 10 means you consistently demonstrate these behaviors in your life. Let's just see if anybody has any questions before we go through. How are they going to use that, Jay? I'm on that screen.
So I just sent them a link in the chat box. If you go to that link, you will come to this form. So you can actually submit it. And once you submit, we'll start seeing some results here, hopefully, as they submit. You can give your name, or you can just put some anonymous spiritual name, avatar name if you want to, and we can start seeing people's total where they stand, and we can start have some discussion around it.
Wow, you're so technologically advanced. This is fantastic. The use of technology for a good cause. Okay, is everybody ready? Let's check in on everybody, see if they're ready. I don't want to go too fast. If you're not ready, raise your hand and tell us, like, you couldn't make the connection, or your computer doesn't work, or you don't like tests.
Or maybe should we get some emojis?
Yeah, let's get some emojis going here. Everybody ready? Manu's totally ready. Okay, as usual. All right, here we go. I'll read them aloud, okay? Number 1, and give a 1 to 10 value for yourself. Number 1, I am satisfied within. That is, I have a sense of inner satisfaction. Think about it, and then you don't have to think too much. Just put your gut reaction. Number 2, I live simply. I should make some music in the background. Hold on.
Battery 100%. Connected to iPhone 236.
Number 3, my happiness comes from my spiritual connection. It does not depend on what I have or where I am. Number 4, I am peaceful even amidst difficulties. Number 5, I am tolerant of difficult people and provoking situations. Number 6, I am equal in loss or gain. Number 7, I focus on and appreciate the good in others. Number 8, I do not occupy my thoughts with or speak about the faults of others. Number 9, I humbly acknowledge the faults in myself that others point out. Number 10, I respond to others' negativity towards me with understanding, sympathy, and kindness. Number 11, I feel for others' sufferings and show compassion by my actions. "12, I am forgiving. I easily let go of resentment. 13, I'm not envious. 14, I'm not a source of trouble or disturbance to anyone. 15, I'm equal to friends and enemies. 16, I'm self-controlled and self-disciplined. 17, I peacefully accept what I cannot control. 18, I am humble. I don't try to show off, and I acknowledge a higher power, that a higher power is the source of my power.
I was wondering what should I answer to this question, like like it should be 0, I guess.
Ha ha ha. I know a lot of these are for our own self-examination. It's slightly artificial to do it 1 to 10, but it does provoke thought, right?
Yeah.
19, I'm clean. Cleanliness is next to godliness. 20, I uplift those around me. 21, I accept the reactions of my karma without blaming others or circumstances and learn the lessons my karma is teaching me. 22, I act with the understanding that I own nothing. 23, I am attracted to spiritual activities and detached from material pleasures. 24, I understand I am a soul within a physical body, and my actions reflect that understanding. 25, I acknowledge that all living beings are souls and thus see and respect the equality of all life. 26, I have a daily spiritual practice. 27, I'm not afraid of death. 28, my divine connection is motivated by the desire to serve and love not to get anything material for myself. 29, I see and feel divine presence everywhere and within every living being. 30, I regularly engage in divine service and in service to my fellow humans, animals, and everybody else. Anyway, it's not a matter how you did on the test, because some of them are counterintuitive. You say humble. I'm a 10. I'm so humble. I'm the most humble person who ever lived. But it is thought-provoking, isn't it? How did you all feel about this test? It looks like,
If it's okay for me to,
yes, Marilia, go ahead.
thank you. I was a bit thrown off about the cleanliness one
Daha
that
da senden bir şey istiyorum. Çöplerini o an at. Lütfen. Ay,
That's just
var
some
bambaşka bir odam
crosstalk,
yapmak
Marilia,
istiyorum.
so
Yavrum bana güven.
Şöyle yapıyorum, devirde gidiyor. Halide o dediğin o.
Marilia, are you still there?
I'm still there. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, about cleanliness.
It's no one could be godly, I don't think.
Yeah, godly with a small g. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's an old statement, but the cleanliness part has to do with the modalities. Sattva, the highest of the modes in this world, breeds clarity, virtue, and so forth, and therefore it's it's listed as one of the spiritual qualities because it induces spiritual attainment and also awareness. If we keep ourselves in a clean condition, say the ancient wisdom literatures, I mean, there's just physical cleanliness. If you notice, if your environment is a total mess, then you may feel that it's hard to concentrate, for instance. And therefore, the yogis typically, they take baths more than most people because they keep their physical being very clear and clean. It's in that vein.
Okay, so I answered that one inaccurately.
Okay.
I put a 0 instead of like a 9 or a 10.
I see. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Sundar has a minor feedback. It looks like two parts here. Rephrasing to look like it's one statement will be nice. I understand I'm a soul within a physical body and my actions reflect that understanding. Nice editing work, Sundar. You're hired. Yes. So what was your overall feeling about just going through these qualities, being self-examining and listening to it? What was your reaction to it in general? How did it make you feel? Okay, Mukharvin gave a face, looks like a face of astonishment. And Radhakripa said, eye-opener, so much to do. Anyone else?
Yeah, same for me. I realized that so much work. I mean, I have to work on it so much to reach 10. So many other questions.
Definitely gives us something to do, doesn't it? When you think about how nice the virtuous qualities sound, and what if you lived with somebody who had all those qualities? What would it feel like? Or what if you met somebody who had all of them at 10? What would it be like? And then we might think, oh, what would my life be like if I had all these at a 10? And at least I was working towards them. And one of the other thoughts is from the Bhagavad Gita that this is our original nature. The soul, the spiritual being, the Atma is naturally luminous full of virtues, just so we get covered over by lower modes of nature, and we forget that. And we, for instance, if, as I said before, when the crystal becomes covered, it doesn't show and doesn't reflect light. So similarly, when we have various coverings over us, we appear to be something that we're not. What else, J.M.? There's some more comments.
Yeah, so I'm just going to just go to this beginning. So Zila said all of these would score higher when we are well rested.
Nice. That's actually an important point that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita, that you should live a balanced life physically. Spiritual life doesn't mean to neglect eating properly or sleeping enough. In fact, he said you should sleep not too much and not too little, and don't collect too much and don't collect too little, and don't recreate too much and don't recreate too little. Be balanced. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so next is Jason says, I feel spiritually dead. Laugh out loud. And Zila says, tomorrow is a new day. Then this is the right place to be, Aditi says. And then Radha Kripa says, eye opener, so much to do. Nirali, work to do and some to remember. Shankari Kaur says, must take out time to evaluate where I am. That's a good point, actually. Even if we do regularly, like every time these lists come up, whether it's the list of qualities or even the list of questions, it naturally inspires you. Like you want to, like it just motivates you naturally to aspire to follow those. So yeah, just regularly, even reading this list again and again will inspire us to make progress.
Such a nice point, Jam. And it might come up in a relationship where you're taking the relationship for granted, and then there's something anxious moment, and then you're about to say something, and then you remember the virtuous qualities. I'd like to make a final point because we're about to close, and that is, although these seem as if we'd work on them piecemeal, that is, we try to develop each one, what the Bhagavad Gita says is, when you direct your attention towards the light, the source of all light, we do have a source, as the ancient wisdom literatures say, Janmadya Sayataha. We come from an original, fully conscious, fully independent, fully intelligent, loving source that's personal, that has all these qualities, the source of all these qualities. So the shortcut is to meditate on that original source. Just like if you want to get nourishment from the sun, you go outside and get a little sun, and then you get the nourishment of the sun. So bhakti yoga means to point one's attention to the original source of everything. And that's really what the meaning of yoga is. It means to reconnect with our source, who has all these virtues. And then by association, we become purified just by remembering the source. So the bhakti yoga practices are meant to consciously reconnect us with source. Many names for source. One of them that's used in the ancient wisdom text is Krishna, because it literally means the one who possesses all these qualities, not just at 10, but like way above 10. And so when you somehow or other stay in contact, like one of the ways is through the mantra, because the mantra contains or is synonymous with the source. And then when you say the mantra, you listen to it, then we're also taking in that light. So it's as Occam's razor says, the simplest solution is usually the best. If we try to fix every one of these independently, we may be running from one to the next. It's like putting our fingers in the dike, try to make sure that it doesn't break. But if we're able to turn our attention towards our source, then that solves the problem. And there's this natural way that we develop the qualities. They start to come into our mind, heart, as a course of association, by association. Well, JM, we came to the top of the hour. And thank you, everyone, for joining in. It was really a delight today to be with all of you. And I'm looking forward to the next possible opportunity. And it reminds me, this whole sense of spiritual qualities in community, the great yogis who meditate, that's what they do all the time, to try to find that diamond-like soul within and then see the source of their self. They feel joyful when they see others practicing. So they have a tradition of raising their arms high in the air, and then they call out this phrase, Hari Bol, which means keep it going, keep the transcendental vibration going. You want to try it before we go? 3, 2, 1. Hari Bol!
Haribol!
Oh,
Haribol!
Haribol! Haribol! Thank you.